Have you ever been told you're too much? Too sensitive, too intense, too emotional, too independent, too loud, too quiet, too deep? As if the fullness of who you are needed to be trimmed down, edited, made smaller for someone else's comfort. Maybe you tried to shrink once. Maybe you folded parts of yourself like laundry no one asked you to wear. Maybe you softened your voice, dulled your passion, held back your truth, thinking that if you could just be less, maybe he would stay. But here's the secret no one told you. It was never that you were too much. It was that he was too little. For the depth you carry, you were never too deep. He was too shallow to dive. This is not about blame, this is about clarity, about truth. The kind of truth that wakes you up in the middle of the night, aching and electric. The kind of truth that stings before it soothes. Because sometimes it's easier to believe that we were the problem than to admit that someone we cared for never had the capacity to hold what we offered. You see, the world has a strange way of turning a woman's power into pathology. Her intuition becomes overthinking. Her passion becomes drama. Her boundaries become attitude. And her standards, oh, those become unrealistic. But the truth is far more sacred. She's not difficult. She's discerning. She's not emotional. She's alive. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But that journey is not gentle, and it is not always welcomed, because becoming who you truly are means you will outgrow people who only knew how to love a muted version of you. People who needed you to be easy, predictable, agreeable, palatable. People who loved your light until it started shining on their shadows. And when you stopped hiding those shadows in yourself, when you began to name them, embrace them, dance with them, you became something they didn't know how to hold. Because here's what they don't tell you. The moment you integrate your fire and your softness, your longing and your independence, your strength and your sorrow, you stop being nice in the way the world prefers. You stop being manageable. And when a woman becomes unmanageable, she becomes magnetic. It's not that he couldn't handle you. It's that he couldn't meet himself in the mirror you became. He couldn't sit with the parts of you that made him question the smallness of his own story. You were the storm he didn't know how to weather, not because you were destructive, but because you were honest. And honesty, when it comes wrapped in the eyes of a woman who has tasted her own, it demands evolution, or escape, and some choose escape, because it's easier to call her too much than to admit you were never ready for real. But here's what you must remember, and I mean really remember, in your cells, in your bones. You are not meant to be digested by small minds. You are not meant to be explained away, apologized for, or diluted. You were not born to be convenient. You are the kind of woman who comes once in a lifetime, and sometimes in someone else's lifetime. That's too soon. They're not ready. They may never be. But that's not your burden to carry, and it never was. You were always made of storms and stillness, of sunlight and shadow, of aching depth that asked for more than surface games and borrowed promises. You were made for soul-level connection, for conversation that goes beyond words, for intimacy that feels like a remembering, not a performance. But in a world that fears depth, you will be labeled as too much. Still, don't dim. Don't become silence when your nature is song. Don't tame your fire just to keep others warm. Don't twist yourself into someone else's version of lovable. Seneca once wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." The same can be said of love, of truth, of meeting a woman who dares to live whole. He didn't fail because you were hard to love. He failed because he loved easy things. And you, my dear, are not easy. You are sacred. You are sovereign. So when they tell you you're too much, I want you to hear this. You are the edge that breaks the illusion. You are the question they don't know how to answer. The kind of woman who doesn't just make a man feel something. She makes him become something, and that takes a kind of courage most aren't ready for, but you are, you always have been. And yet I know there were nights when you lay awake wondering if they were right, if maybe just maybe, you were the problem. If being wanted meant being less, if softness meant silence, if love required self-abandonment, you questioned yourself, didn't you? Because that's what the world trains women to do. To doubt their brilliance, to dim their insight, to shrink their wildness into neat, manageable shapes. But what if your intensity wasn't a flaw? It was a signal. What if your yearning for depth wasn't a wound? It was a compass. There is a part of you that never gave up on truth. Even in your lowest moments. Even when you were apologizing for your own heartbeat, begging for crumbs of closeness that never felt real. Even then, something inside you refused to die. That spark, that defiance, that ache to be seen, not just watched. That is your soul refusing to be edited. They called it neediness, but it was really your wisdom whispering, this is not enough. Not enough honesty, not enough presence, not enough soul. You were never asking for too much. You were asking for what was real. But when you live in a culture that rewards performance over presence, numbness over nuance, consumption over connection, it makes you doubt yourself. It makes a woman who feels deeply think she's broken. It makes her confusion seem like failure. But here's the thing. Confusion is the beginning of awakening. It's the crack in the illusion. The moment when you realize the life you were taught to want does not feed you. That confusion, that's your rebirth. Because the truth is, you were never supposed to fit in. You were meant to expand, to shatter molds, not squeeze into them. You are here to break generational patterns, not repeat them. To say no more when others keep saying, just settle. To love like the ocean, endless, honest, wild, and to refuse the shallow end no matter how lonely the deep becomes. And yes, it does get lonely. This kind of growth comes with its own ache. Because when you stop contorting yourself to be chosen, when you start choosing yourself, some people leave. Some people stop clapping. Some people call you cold, unreachable, arrogant. But you're not cold. You're clean. You're no longer willing to entertain what drains you just to feel included. You're no longer willing to chase someone who only loved the idea of you, not the actual truth of your being. And that is not arrogance. That is alignment. Carl Jung talked about the process of individuation, the journey of becoming your whole self, integrating the unconscious, reconciling your light and your shadow. It's not a path of comfort, it's a path of courage. And you, just by listening, by feeling this truth rise in your chest, you're already on it. You are not the girl who waits to be chosen. You are the woman who knows she is choosing. Choosing peace over chaos, depth over approval, truth over fantasy. And it's okay that some people don't follow you into this next chapter. Let them go. Let the version of you that needed their validation rest in peace. Because who you are becoming, she has no interest in convincing anyone of her worth. She is no longer available for half love and half truths. She is no longer holding space for the ones who never showed up fully. She is no longer at war with herself in the name of someone else's comfort. You've seen what happens when you betray your own soul for the sake of keeping someone else's affection. It never works, it never lasts, and the cost is always too high. There's something sacred about the moment a woman finally chooses herself, not in theory, not in fantasy, but in her bones. It's quiet, it's strong, it doesn't need to announce itself. But it changes everything. That is what he couldn't handle. Not your fire, but your refusal to put it out for him. Not your longing, but your refusal to numb it just to fit his capacity. Not your tears, but the fact that you dared to feel what he spent his life avoiding. You became a mirror he wasn't ready for. Because when a woman loves herself enough to stop performing, it disrupts everything. It reveals, it reflects. It calls others to rise or run, and if they run, let them. Because now you know, now you see. What once felt like rejection was actually redirection. What once broke you was breaking open. Every too much was a breadcrumb on the path back to your truth. You are not too much. You're just no longer willing to be less. And now, Now you begin to feel the shift, not just in your mind, but in your body, in your silence, in the way your heart beats differently now, more slowly, more surely, in the way you walk into a room and no longer search for approval, but presence, in the way you say no without guilt, yes without fear, goodbye without explanation. You are no longer aching to be understood by those who never really listened, because somewhere along the way, you realized something profound. Your worth does not depend on their capacity to receive you, and their inability to see you does not make you invisible. It just means you were speaking a language they never learned to hear, and that is not your fault. It's not even theirs. It's just the truth. But now that you've found your voice, your real one, the one buried under years of polite nodding and subtle shape-shifting, you're not giving it up. You've come too far to go back to a life of performance, because when a woman reclaims her essence, she becomes elemental. Fire, wind, earth, water, all of it, untamed and unedited. She stops explaining herself, stops shrinking. She learns to take up space, not arrogantly, but with quiet conviction. And suddenly people don't know what to do with her. The ones who loved her when she was silent now find her threatening. The ones who once called her sweet now call her intense. The ones who once praised her patience now accuse her of being cold. But she is not cold. She is clear. And clarity in a world addicted to confusion feels like a threat. You've probably felt it already. The resistance, the subtle pushback, the way they tilt their heads when you speak your truth without apology, the way their eyes narrow when you don't soften your edges to soothe their egos. But you weren't put here to comfort everyone. You weren't made to fit into everyone's expectations. You are not a mood board. You are not a brand. You are not a costume stitched together to satisfy someone's fantasy. You are a soul, a storm, a stillness. And while many will misunderstand, some won't. Some will feel seen by your fire. Some will meet your depth and dive in. Some will witness your full self, not the edited version, not the palatable version, and say, "Thank God you exist." And those are the ones you've been waiting for, the ones who do not flinch at your fullness, who do not need you to be anything other than everything that you are. But before they can arrive, you must become her, the woman who no longer abandons herself for crumbs of affection. This path you're walking is not easy. It requires shedding old skins. It requires grieving the girl who once believed she had to earn her worth. It requires sitting in the loneliness of not being chosen, until you realize that you are the one who chooses. That is the paradox. Loneliness doesn't mean you're unloved. It means you're in transition between who you were and who you're becoming, between what you tolerated and what you now require, between living as a reflection and rising as a flame. And yes, you will be misunderstood here, misnamed, misread. But do not let their fear of your fire convince you to extinguish it. Because here's the truth that lives beneath all of this. The world needs women like you, women who refuse to be silenced, women who speak from the belly of their truth, women who love like a prayer and leave like a storm when their spirit is no longer honored. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be real. You are not here to make others comfortable. You are here to awaken. And awakening is messy. It is raw. It burns. It isolates. But it also liberates. When a woman is no longer willing to trade her truth for belonging, she becomes free. And freedom is always misunderstood at first, because it doesn't ask permission, it just is. So when someone says you're too much, smile. Let them. Let them speak from the cage they've chosen, and then you keep walking. Keep blooming in the places they told you were barren. Keep shining in the corners they wanted you to dim. Keep feeling. Keep breaking. Keep rising. You are not too much. You are the exact amount of everything you were meant to be. And maybe now, finally, you understand. It was never about being too much. That phrase was never truly about you. It was always about them, their fear, their limits, their inability to hold what they didn't yet understand. He couldn't. Handle this about you. Not your volume, not your passion, not your dreams, but your mirror. You reflected back everything he was unwilling to meet in himself. And that kind of reflection, it can feel like fire to someone still made of paper. But that's not your burden to carry. You were never meant to burn yourself down just to keep someone else warm. And now you know, love that costs your soul is not love. It's survival dressed in longing, and you were made for more than survival. You were made to thrive. How many times have you felt that ache in your chest, the silent whisper of your spirit asking, "Is this all there is?" That soft pain isn't weakness. It's awareness. A deeper knowing that the life you were handed isn't the life you were born for. And when you finally stop fighting that voice and start listening, it changes everything. It won't always be loud. Truth rarely is. Sometimes it speaks in the language of stillness, of discomfort, of things falling apart so something more honest can take their place. Let it. Let things fall. Let the old versions of you dissolve. The one who over-explained, the one who waited, the one who tolerated less and called it love. Thank her, and let her rest, because now you are being called to rise. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who the world told you to be, not who he wanted you to stay, but who you've always been underneath all the noise. And yes, there will be grief. There is always grief when we stop pretending. You will grieve the fantasy. You will grieve the illusion of love. You will grieve the parts of yourself you silenced for someone who never asked you to speak. But grief is not the end. It is the sacred threshold, the doorway between the woman you were and the woman who is waiting for you on the other side. And when you step through it, something begins to shift. The pain becomes power. The silence becomes song. The aloneness becomes clarity. You begin to see with different eyes. You no longer ask, "Why couldn't he love me?" You begin to ask, "Why did I ever forget to love myself?" You no longer ache to be chosen. You become the chooser. And from that place, clear, rooted whole, you draw in what mirrors you. Not your wounds, but your wholeness. Not your fears, but your fire. You no longer settle for someone who tolerates your light. You wait for someone who stands in awe of it. And while you wait, if you must, you are not empty. You are becoming, you are evolving, you are remembering the rhythm of your own heartbeat. That is the revolution. When a woman becomes her own home. When she no longer looks outward for salvation, but inward for truth. When she stops running from her fire and learns to live inside it. So tell me now, was it ever really too much? Or was it the exact medicine this world wasn't ready to receive? And if your story feels familiar, if something inside you is awakening as you listen, honor it. Don't rush to fix it. Don't run to hide it. Just sit with it. Let the tears come if they need to. Let the silence stretch. Let your old selves echo for a moment longer. And then breathe, deeply, boldly, softly. This is not your breaking. This is your remembering. So, if this touched something in you, if it brought you back to yourself even for a moment, share it. Not just with someone who needs to hear it, but with the woman you used to be. Let her know. She was never too much. She was just preparing for everything that came next, and what's coming is beautiful.